Have you ever noticed your dog choosing to sleep right against your back instead of in front of you? Not beside you, not somewhere nearby, but pressed directly against you. Most people don't think much about it. It just feels like another place your dog happens to rest. But this position isn't random. And it doesn't mean the same thing as the one you might expect. If you pay attention closely, you might notice something small. Your dog doesn't just lie there. They press in. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, until there's almost no space left between their body and yours. And once they settle, they stay. At first it might seem simple. Warmth. Your body holds heat. It stays consistent. And for a dog, that kind of warmth can feel comfortable, familiar, easy to relax into. But just like before, that's not the full explanation, because this position is different. When your dog lies between your legs, they're surrounded. There's protection on both sides. But here, they're choosing a direction, a side. They're placing themselves alongside you. Not enclosed, not held in place, just aligned. And that alignment matters. Because now, your dog isn't just resting near you. They're positioning themselves to stay connected to you. Every small movement, every shift in your body becomes something they can feel instantly. Not by looking, not by thinking, but just by being there. And if you stay still for a moment, you might notice something else. Your dog doesn't just stay close, they match you. The way your body rises when you breathe, the way it settles when you exhale, somehow they adjust with it. Not perfectly, not exactly, but close enough that it feels almost synchronized. And that's not accidental. From this position, your dog can sense more than you realize. Your breathing, the rhythm of your body, even the smallest changes that most people would never notice. And because they're so close, they don't need to look. They just feel it. And most of the time, they're already aware before you even move. And this is where it starts to shift. You might notice this in quiet moments. A small shift, barely enough to wake you. And almost instantly, your dog adjusts too. Not fully waking up, but not completely asleep either. Just enough to stay in sync with you. And sometimes, even when nothing obvious happens, they still shift slightly, as if responding to something you didn't notice. A sound in the distance, a movement outside the room. Something small, something subtle, but enough for them to register, even while staying right next to you. But that's not all. They're not fully resting. If you pay even closer attention, you might notice something even smaller. Sometimes, your dog doesn't just adjust once, they do it again. A tiny shift, barely noticeable, as if checking that you're still there. And this is where things begin to change. Because unlike other positions, this isn't complete rest. Not entirely. Your dog is relaxed, their body softens, their breathing slows, but a small part of their awareness stays active. If you pay attention to their position, you might notice something else. They're often facing outward, toward the room, toward the space around you, not toward you. And that detail matters more than it seems. Because now, they're not just resting, they're aware of everything beyond you. And in that position, they often place themselves between you and the space around you. Not directly in front, not fully blocking, but just enough to stay aware of what's beyond you, while still staying connected to you. It's a position that lets them do both, without needing to move. Between your legs, your dog was surrounded. Because what your dog is doing here is something most people never notice. They could let everything go, but here, something changes. They stay close to you, but they don't disconnect from the world around you. And in a very quiet way, they begin to take on a different role. Because in this position, they're not just part of your safety, they're becoming part of it. And that changes everything. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that feels obvious, but in a quiet, instinctive sense. Your dog stays close to you, while keeping just enough awareness of everything around you. They don't need to move, they don't need to react, but they're there, present. And in moments like this, your dog isn't just resting near you, they're positioning themselves in a way that lets them respond before you even notice anything has changed. Not because they have to, but because, in a quiet way, they've chosen to. Because trust doesn't always look the same, and this is one of those times. Sometimes, it looks like letting go completely, like you saw before, but other times, it looks like staying just aware enough, not tense, not alert, but not fully disconnected either. But if you've ever seen your dog in a completely unfamiliar place, you might notice something very different. They don't stay like this. They don't press in. They don't stay aligned. They create distance. They reposition. They stay just aware enough of everything. And that difference isn't random. It only happens when they trust what's around them. And this position sits right in between. Your dog is calm, but not unaware, resting, but still connected, close to you, while still sensing the world around you. It's a balance most people never notice, and it's not easy for a dog to reach. And once you start noticing it, you realize it happens more often than you thought. Not just at night. Not just when things are quiet, but in small moments throughout the day. Moments where your dog chooses a position that keeps them close to you, while still staying aware of everything around you. From your perspective, it feels simple. Your dog is just lying next to you, maybe even asleep. Nothing unusual, nothing that stands out. But from your dog's side, this is a decision, a very specific one. And if you stay still for a moment and just notice the way your dog rests against you, you might realize something subtle. They're not just there, they're staying there, not drifting away, not shifting positions, just present. A choice to stay close to you, and at the same time, a choice to remain aware, to stay connected to what's happening around you. Not because they have to, but because, in a quiet way, they choose to, again and again. Because over time, this kind of closeness becomes something more. It's no longer just about where your dog chooses to rest. It becomes a pattern, a quiet habit, a position they return to without thinking. Not because it's the most comfortable, but because it feels right. Because being close to you, while still staying aware of the world around you, creates a kind of balance they don't find anywhere else. And for a dog, that balance matters more than we realize. And once a dog finds a balance like that, they rarely give it up, even when you don't notice it. But not all dogs choose to stay here. Some move even closer, closer than most people expect. They don't just press against your back, they move toward your head, toward your face, sometimes even choosing to rest on your pillow. And that kind of closeness isn't about awareness anymore. It means something very different, something far more personal. And once you notice it, you start to see that behavior in a completely different way.